Hi YouTube, welcome to the 31st edition of the vlog. When last I left you, my team had just made the finals of our league. This past week we bowled that final match. You wouldn't know it by the way that I bowled, but we won. I'm not going to show too much video of that night, however, because it was absolutely terrible for me. My team carried me hard. The weather was super warm, so even my large thumb holes weren't fitting very well. I couldn't get out of the ball, and I was completely just unable to get comfortable. My spare shooting was dismal, my strike balls weren't much better. Between that, the pressure of it being the finals, and some non-bowling world stress that was added to my life recently, I was in a place where I was really dysregulated emotionally and mentally and did not manage myself or my game well at all. I'm going to do a follow-up video on the last part of that night as part of my Jason Talks series, especially with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, but I'm still processing it and I'm not really in a place where I can talk about it constructively. The bowling itself isn't really worth analyzing because there just wasn't anything to take away from it mechanically. The whole night was mental. But I will be doing a recap of the entire league season this coming week, so look ahead to that and subscribe if you don't want to miss it. Some other news though, I'm continuing to evolve my game. Last week I took another coaching session with William Clark out at River Rand. We talked through some of the challenges I'd run into at the Lockport tournament, including having a challenging time getting the ball out to the right at times, as well as having the yips on 10 pins. The 10-pin thing is still ongoing, but one thing that I finally realized myself is I was probably doing myself a disfavor by sticking to a habit from the 80s. When I was bowling as a youth and mostly just shooting corner pins by trying to kill my wrist, I would move my pinky out to the side like this, which in theory helps flatten out my hand. But what I figured out, mostly through shower thoughts, is that there's no reason for me to do that anymore. I'm throwing plastic at corner pins for a reason. The ball itself is going to go straight no matter what. So instead of having my pinky out, which I've noticed causes my release to be different and isn't consistent, I brought it back in next to my ring finger. This makes my release on my spares much more like my strike shots, reducing variables and making my spare shooting as simple as possible. I ran this by Will, and he agreed it was a very good idea. So I've been basically practicing with that change since doing it. Two more changes to my game that were directly related to my approach and are potentially going to be huge for me, even if they're kind of little pieces. The first is he asked me to basically drop my shoulder a little bit when entering my stance. This is pretty common amongst modern bowlers, but I'd still been saying it with squared level shoulders. Starting with the shoulder lower means I don't have to drop it during the release, which is needed to get the ball smoothly to the right. It also allowed me to get my wrist to feel a lot more natural resting under the ball during my stance, which has immediately added comfort and relaxation to my game. It has been a fantastic change. The other change is taking a bit longer for me to feel so good about it, but it's given me a few moments of this feels right. One of the challenges I've had, even after my slide changes, is that I have a tendency to slide towards my target. This means that my body goes that direction, effectively counteracting any adjustments I've made at the start of my approach. What Will asked me to do was try and take my fourth step back towards the center line of my body, sort of doing a second crossover step almost. What this is intended to do is to reinforce that my body should be moving forward as slide and release, not angling towards my target. I can feel this change will help a lot, but it's something that I have to definitely think about during my approach still. So it's a thing that's going to take a lot longer to be really incorporated well into my game. But it's something positive that will definitely serve me very, very well once I get it there. Finally, one note on my spare shooting, or one last note on my spare shooting. I spent a lot of time in this recent practice session just shooting spares, moving between 10 pins, 7 pins, the 3-6-10, and the 1-2 pocket for washouts. I've noticed that I'm having a much harder time getting the ball to the right of the 3 pin since my slide changes have occurred. I'm not sure if my angles are different, but I need to basically spend a session just refiguring out some of my spare targeting. When I finally went to plastic last summer, I used a thing called the Triax spare system to figure out my single pin spare targets, and that has served me really, really well. But in the last couple of months, my spares have kind of gotten bad again, and sometimes even when I feel like I'm hitting my target, I was still missing them. So I'm going to basically reevaluate my standing and aiming targets and see if I can revise my system a little bit just to get my consistency back to where it needs to be. So that's basically where my game stands right now. Going forward, I will be spending a lot of time practicing the things that I just talked about. I'm also starting a summer sports shot league this week at River Rand, which I think is going to be a lot of fun, as long as the air conditioning stays on and works. Be sure to subscribe if you want to follow along with my adventures on that league, And as always, I really, really appreciate that you take the time to comment and like my videos. It's been wonderful to hear from you, whether it's commenting on my game or letting me know how your own bowling has been going. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck and good bowling.
When you're chucking my ball better than I throw it, I'm giving up.